Hi all, I thought I'd give you an update on my progress with my modifications of the Bergpanzer Tiger P. My modifications are just about done with it. As you can see, I've got the shovel on the back along with the winch. You can ignore the figure, he's just there for scale and for my amusement just now. Before I pick it up, let's start with this. I knocked the legs down on these a bit, or on the winch, to get it a little closer to the hull. And in doing so, on this side there were two legs, almost like that. Yeah, you can see that. That were a little too spindly to stand up to the cutting and sanding. One broke, so I decided to just build up my own attachment. Makes it look a little bit beefier to handle 65 tons of winch pressure, or 65 tons of pressure against the winch. So that's done. It'll end up getting wrapped. This is just on here for now to display this, which, come on, wheels falling off everywhere, would be about the travel position for it. Unless they use the other winch, the manual winch on the mast to get it up. Because, as you can see, that's as high as it'll go. And even without the winch there, if you take a look down in there, there's not a whole lot more travel before it hits the bottom of the casemate, or the upper hull, whatever you want to call it. This is just held on with the toothpicks right now. I'll take them out, just because I don't want to take the pins off the sprue and lose them. As for down here, let's see, the two loops have to be moved right up. I don't know if the camera will catch it. Their original position, can you zoom in? We're supposed to be right there, almost. Right where I ended up putting this thing. Yeah, it's shifted a bit, so we can all see while I talk. Two holes that were originally meant for these loops are down here, there, and there. So instead of mounting it here, I filled them, sanded them smooth, and moved the loops up higher, out of the way, where they'd still be usable. Other than that, it's just the main components are done just now. I wanted to get this stuff done so that I knew where it fitted and didn't risk all the smaller details, the handles and stuff like that, snapping them off, as I did a whole lot of twisting and turning and cursing with this thing, trying to figure this out. It wasn't too bad. Again, I'll probably try running some small looking electrical type wires from somewhere on this motor to the hull, just around there, something like that, to point somewhere, whatever looks good, just to give it the impression of being electrical. And the other thing I might do, these things, or with this one, I think I showed you in the last one, Tamiya's main recommendation is that they normally went with double the pulling power by using a pulley, one of these little guys. So what they would do is run the cable out to whatever, run it through the pulley, and then run it back and anchor it to the vehicle, which I think grade 7 science taught me was you slow your pull speed by half, but you double your pull power. And to make that a little bit more obvious, what I'm considering doing is a small diorama with just this vehicle, with the plow or spade, shovel, whatever you want to call it, down. Obviously it's not going to be that far down, but it'll be slightly buried into mud, so slightly below grade. somewhere about there. The wheels aren't really on just now, so bear with me. And a figure just behind it pulling out the tow cable, just to make it a little bit more clear what it is. But even with it in the up position and some wire on the pulley or on the winch, I think it's going to look a little bit more industrial, a little bit more business-like as to what it actually is. I could just leave this model loose, undioramed with no figure, so I can leave this up or down as I see fit. But this thing's going to get festooned in chains, tow cables, hand tools, all sorts of stuff as I go along. But before I get further into it, I thought I'd stop and make a video. So there it is. That's the bulk of my modifications, or all of my modifications. The rest of the stuff now will just be the detail work, the hatches and handles, etc. And then if anything else interesting comes along, I'll let you know. Now, someone did say these instructions were pretty good, and they are, to an extent. They are the usual Dragon, in places kind of cluttered and unclear. But what you get is a straight build up until step, where do I stop? There we go. The first 6 steps are typical Dragon. Then where it gets a little unusual, it's actually kind of good and confusing, seeing as it's actually coming from Dragon, is if you want to do the early version. They've laid it out all in a row instead of burying it like they normally do. So steps 7 through 13 are all for the early version, or you can skip those and go for the optional ones, the later one, which is the late version, which again, same thing, all the steps needed, straight through, no sort of cut and paste or interweaved instructions for different versions. It's just straight through to that point, and then it comes back for the master rigging, because it doesn't matter if you're using the master, you're using the same instructions for either version. So that's what I'm going to do, and completely out of scale, but I figure with that hanging off the back there like that, slightly smaller of course, it's going to look a lot more like a good rugged work vehicle. Anyway, have a good day, guys.